Okay, this is going to go over how to do E&M coding. E&M coding is extremely complicated. So, for purposes of the exam, I will probably give you what level the HPI exam and medical decision making are, and then you will pick the code. We're not going to get into evaluating documentation to actually pick out the levels until advanced coding. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I've got a worksheet up in front of me that you can see. It's all color-coded. This pink area right here belongs to the HPI. The exam is the blue area, and then the purple area is the medical decision-making. One thing I want to go over is that there are two ways of evaluating the exam. The first is the 97 guidelines, which is the way I've seen most people explain it. The second is the 95 guidelines, which is what is explained in your book. This blue section is the 97 guidelines, and then to use the 95 guidelines, you would actually use this section right here, which is the same as the review of systems, except these last two that are starred, those are combined. Okay, so here we have descriptors. There's two buckets, 0 to 3, and then 4 plus or 3C. 3C is part of the 97 guidelines, so I'm going to leave those out since I don't think that was addressed in your book. These descriptors are fairly straightforward. I don't agree with the way that they point them out in the book. So I will give to you what I tell physicians and what I have been taught by auditors. Location is where is the location. Severity is the keywords mild, moderate, severe. It can be a pain scale or it can be implied, such as an asthmatic using their inhaler every 2 minutes or 2 hours. Sorry. Context is, for an acute problem, it's etiology. How did the disease come about? For follow-up or chronic problems, you can think of it as how is the patient doing with their treatment plan. It's kind of the big story from the patient's point of view. Associated signs and symptoms are those symptoms that go along with the location. Now sometimes they'll list multiple complaints. You can count one of those complaints as an associated signs and symptoms. Sometimes you'll see things such as nausea with vomiting and diarrhea. Well, nausea would be the location, vomiting would be the associated signs and symptoms. The diarrhea would actually be a review of systems. Only a word can only go into one category, and anything after that is counted as a review of systems. Quality is like an adjective: red, watery, bloody, clear, foul, things such as that nature. Duration is how long have they had the condition. 2 years, 2 months. I skipped over timing, as timing and duration are kind of kissing cousins. Timing has to do with frequency. When does it get worse? Does it get worse with extension? Does it get worse lying down in the AM? It can also be the keywords persistent, chronic, constant, on and off, things like that. Modifying factors are what are they doing at home to make the condition better. So taking ibuprofen or Tylenol, using rest, heat, ice, things like that. You can only be in 0 to 3 or 4 or more. After that, once you get to 4, you can stop, and then anything that's a location or sounds like a location can be counted as a review of systems. Now, a lot of times you'll hear things like no fever, no chills. That's two aspects of the same system. It's constitutional. Okay? If you hear no fever, no chills, no night sweats, no nausea, no vomiting, that's two systems. The first 3 belong to constitutional, then the next 2 belong to gastrointestinal, or what we call GI. The buckets that it can go to are 0. You can have none reviewed. There should be at least 1. Best practice is to have 2 reviewed. To get 10 or more is a little bit of a stretch. I see it done typically for head traumas and for abdominal pain. If you do that, what the physician will sometimes do is list some of them. I recommend at least 6, and then say all others reviewed and negative. What that does is that technically gives them credit for all of the review systems. I don't recommend that unless medical necessity drives it, but such as it is. The last bucket here for the HPI is past medical, family, and social history. Can have a maximum of 3 points. If you mention medications, allergies, surgeries, that's all part of past medical, and you only get 1 point for it. If they mention anything about family history, that's another point, regardless of how many family members they reference. If they mention anything about seatbelt usage, recreational drugs, alcohol, children, marital status, job status, that's social history. No matter how much they mention, they only get 1 point for social. Best practice is to check meds and allergies, which gives you 1 point. It's just good medicine to check at least meds and allergies. You can barely read it, but in order to get into this bucket here, you have to have 2 for an established and 3 for a new. That's what the E and the N. Your levels are here: problem focus, expanded problem focus, detailed, and comprehensive. The rule is that the lowest guy wins. Comprehensive being the highest, problem focus being the lowest. You see this 3/3, it means you need all 3 of these components in order to come up with the HPI level. So if you have 4 descriptors, 0 review of systems, and family and social history mentions, you'll have this bucket circled, the 0, and the comprehensive for the PFS. Since the lowest guy wins, this is a problem focused because of the 0 ROS. If they have 4 descriptors, 2 review systems, and meds and allergies, it's a detailed history. You'll want to point out to physicians that detailed does not mean a lot of information. So that's it for this part. I will go into the exam. I will go into the exam in the next part.